Superintendent David Fleishman released his budget for fiscal year 2022. Here are some of the highlights.
It was a little over a year ago that I presented the budget for the 2021 school year. At the time, we expected a rather uneventful budget year. Instead, the pandemic resulted in a year of unprecedented unpredictability as we have navigated the challenge of educating over 12,000 students in ways that we never could have imagined. The pandemic has had a tremendous impact on school districts in a multitude of ways over the past year, including financial. In Newton, we have spent millions of dollars that we did not anticipate spending when we first presented our budget last spring. We allocated significant funds for ventilation, testing for our staff and students, and PPE. We spent a significant amount on technology, ensuring that all students, regardless of family income, had the necessary devices to participate in all aspects of both online and in-person learning. We hired almost 100 additional staff members needed to support our elementary distance learning academy, connect to hybrid students on the remote days, and provide coverage for middle school teachers working remotely. These positions will not be needed in fiscal year 22 and have been removed from the budget as we plan our full in-person return. While our additional costs were more than $13 million, we did receive significant grant funding from the various federal and state programs. We also had some spending reductions in a number of areas, particularly transportation. However, given that our unbudgeted expenses were greater than our additional revenue and spending reductions, the FY21 budget has been a challenge to manage. Thankfully, we have collaborated closely with our city partners and do expect to finish the year with a balanced budget. As we think to next year, we will have a more predictable environment with full in-person. We also anticipate a more stable financial environment, but things will not be normal. While we're planning for full in-person, we will work with families whose children cannot attend in person for medical reasons. We certainly will have cases and we'll work closely with families. Another challenge we faced is our elementary enrollment. Newton, like all districts in Massachusetts, has seen a decline in enrollment this year, particularly in our early elementary grades. And so our team has been, has produced enrollment projections. We're watching those very carefully, but again, we don't have any past data because we have not had a pandemic like this in over 100 years. So we're clearly watching our elementary enrollment very closely, and we'll continue to do so in the coming weeks. In terms of our system goals, those remain the same. The work will be different. We want all students to have rich educational and academic experiences in the Newton Public Schools. Educational equity has been a long-standing goal, more important than ever following the pandemic and our year. Social and emotional learning, again, we will be challenged in ways we probably have not before given the return to school. There's been a lot of time focused on certainly equity, academics, and social and emotional learning all year. Improving and expanding our facilities, that has been on hold this year due to the financial challenges that the city has faced. We do hope in the near future to get back to improving and expanding our facilities. In terms of our budget pillars, what goes into a school budget? Newton has a long history of rich educational programs. We're looking forward to continuing our rich programs, music, the arts, electives. That will continue next year. We also value favorable class sizes. While class size ratios are not everything, we know students will require attention from their teachers. We know that our students this year benefited in some ways. Although students were not in school as much, they had ratios of sometimes 8 to 9 students with a teacher, and we think that helped some students a lot in making progress during a very challenging time. Facilities I already discussed, that work continues and will for a long time as we work to get all our schools up to a high standard. Student services includes both special education and, of course, social and emotional health. That is a critical priority, as I discussed earlier, next year. And educational infrastructure. Part of that includes not only the support to schools in terms of our staff members, but also technology. And we know educational infrastructure this year in terms of technology. Our technology team absolutely did a fantastic job and worked incredibly hard to make everything work this year. In terms of the budget highlights as we look to next year, our proposed FY22 budget will be fairly similar to the budget we proposed prior to the pandemic. It'll be adjusted for enrollment. We will have similar class size averages, which are quite favorable, and certainly at the elementary level and middle school next year will be more favorable than they have been over the last several years. As I talked about earlier, we're looking forward to rich educational programs, all back, all in full, and our commitment to meeting the needs of all students in general and special education will continue, and certainly supporting social and emotional learning, development, and mental health is a critical part of our budget. As we look to our budget in terms of numbers, we have a 4.1% increase next year, just a little over $10 million. So our total budget is $253,207,930, with salaries and benefits making up 87%. That is fairly typical for school districts.